I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I kind of lost track myself. But being this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, it would blow your lid clean off. You got to ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Oh, you do? That's what I thought. Dirty Harry here. Excuse me, Hickok 45 here. Yes, we're going to do a little Dirty Harry. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to acting school. Yes, this is the Dirty Harry 44 Magnum. That's why we called the video the Dirty Harry 44 Magnum. And we wanted to remind you what horrible acting I am capable of, okay? It's unloaded. Probably wouldn't even shoot a 2-liter that close. Well, definitely wouldn't. With a 44 Magnum special, nah, I wouldn't do that. So yeah, this is, a little bit of the story if you've been following events, if you follow us on Facebook and everywhere, that I went to Columbus, Ohio, spoke at a Second Amendment rally a couple of weeks ago. Got there early enough to hit a couple of gun shops and got into trouble. Yeah, I've confessed to this a couple of places, I guess shooting the breeze and wherever, Facebook, and ran into a shop and found a Dirty Harry 44 Magnum, model 29-2, like I needed another one. And, check out the most recent Shooting the Breeze. I think I talked about it a little bit, but they had it lying there at a very reasonable price and even took my offer that was lower than that even. And so it was on consignment. And I appreciate the person who left it there on consignment because I have always wanted a 6.5-inch model 29. I just never have acquired one. My old 8 3/8 has just been lovely. I fired it over 70,000 times since 1974. I had to replace a few parts and everything, put a new trigger pin in it. You can tell there's a little finish off there, replace the trigger pin and stuff, but it's still cranking along just fine. Shoots as well as ever. It's just a great revolver. Back because of Dirty Harry, this particular barrel length was really impossible to find, in the early 70s, mid 70s, anytime almost. And I didn't need it, there's that need word, but I just couldn't resist it. I couldn't leave the shop really without it. Although I'd had to have it shipped back, but that's another story, isn't it? Crazy laws. So it would have been dangerous for me to bring it back with me, right? Because I don't have any firearms. Here they are trusting me to bring a firearm, back from Ohio to Tennessee. Whew, it would have been dangerous. So anyway, that's what that is, and we're glad you came by to see the Dirty Harry special. We're going to fire mostly federal ammunition in it. I got some 44 special, which is what Clint carries. It's a Magnum. Got a few of my hand-loaded Magnums, and got speed loaders, just like Dirty Harry carried. And I use sometimes, but not all that often, okay? The old HKS speed loaders. That's old school, isn't it? Yeah, pretty cool. So here we are with the Dirty Harry. I'm calling it the Dirty Harry Special. I have several Smith & Wesson 44 Magnums, and various barrel lengths. Most of them are 629. Well, not most. I guess I have a couple of 629s, 3. I got 4-inch and then some 3-inchers. But this is the only one I have that really is the revolver that was carried in the movies and became so famous as far as the exact configuration, the exact firearm. Let's go ahead and shoot it, okay? I'll even use a speed loader. All right, let's put some. No, let's start out with. Let's go ahead and shoot some Magnums. I think I've got Magnums on one of these. Yeah, these are my Magnums. They're not quite as hot as factory, but in this barrel length, they're plenty strong. That's for sure. Let's take out some of these things that need a little power, like that can of water right there. Great. Now I'm drenched. Let's see. Let's take out the Kentucky 2-liter. Finish the shower. How about that one right there? Boom. How about the cowboy? Think Dirty Harry would shoot a cowboy? Oh man, got him right in the belly. He would if he was a bad guy, wouldn't he? Yeah, look at that. Surprise, surprise, it's a good shooter. Now we're both wet. It's nice. It's great when you get a firearm that you kind of always have wanted, and you pull it up, you load it, and it shoots great, has a great trigger, and it shoots right on. Yeah, that's hard to beat, isn't it? So yeah, this was it. Now, since we're doing this, I thought I'd focus a little more on that. We've talked about it here and there in other videos, but if you are a youngster and you don't even know who Dirty Harry is, wow, piece of your upbringing, your education is missing. There's a big gap there. But anyway, in the early 70s, the movie Dirty Harry came out, and then there were others, Magnum Force, The Enforcer, what was I always forget the the Deadpool, oh gosh, what's the other one? But there were 3 or 4 of them where Clint Eastwood played Dirty Harry, carried this revolver, and he also carried an auto mag, and one of those, but he carried the old Model 29 6.5 inch. All right, now there's some myths out there, misconceptions. Now from my reading and research, the American Rifleman, the NRA Museum curator, who has one of these there, that was presented to John, I think it's Milius, I'm not sure how he pronounces his last name. He was the screenwriter for I think he helped on the first one, and he wrote Magnum Force maybe, but he was a major participant there in writing the screenplays and directing and everything. He's a gun guy, he's an NRA board member and a Hollywood director. He's done a lot of great movies. If you see a movie he's directing, the gun stuff is going to be pretty interesting, and it's going to be pretty correct too. So we appreciate his help, what he does in keeping things a little bit more realistic. But it was presented to him from, I think, Clint and maybe somebody else anyway, with a little emblem on it. You can see pictures of it, at least it was at that museum. But anyway, those folks have researched this. When these guns were in the early 70s, late 60s, they really weren't selling many of these. The movie, made them popular. And they had a hard time getting them, to tell you the truth. And they had to call in all their favors, Smith & Wesson, and had to know somebody to get some of them pieced together, really, because I think they were even out of production at the time. You know how the gun companies will do runs of various firearms, and then don't make any for a year or two maybe, and then make some more, whatever. But the demand wasn't that high at that time for a 44 Magnum, believe it or not. And of course, Clint Eastwood changed all of that. But they actually had difficulty getting them. And I'm gonna shoot some really hot ones next, some of these Federals. They're pretty warm, okay? And shooting a lot of these would not be fun, even in the 8 3/8. But we'll shoot a couple of them before I go to special, which is what Clint carried, okay? And plenty powerful. So they did acquire some. The rumor was, one of the myths is that they didn't even use a 44 Magnum, they used a 41 Magnum because that's all they could get or something. There might have been a 41 Magnum somewhere in the mix used in a promotional shot or something, but by and large, you just about can't find anything out about that, in the real story. And they also got an 8 3/8 like this one, and because they were just having to get a hold of what they could for a little while. But I read that they used this mainly for some of the posters to make the barrel look, even longer on this, make it look longer, which that would do that. But it was, by and large, they had 3 of these. They finally got 3 of them, and that's what they used in the movies. Let's just blow something up with this thing. Magnum, how about a pot smoker? Oh boy, that'll smoke it. Let's see if these will go through paper. I think they will. You can probably see the recoil. See if it'll break a 2-liter. Ouch! Probably flinched. Yep. Probably one more, no? You're more likely to flinch a little bit when something actually hurts your hand. Just that simple. And it's not as much fun to shoot. And that's why the famous Clint Eastwood carried specials, Dirty Harry. So they actually did use 44 Magnums, okay? And the interesting thing too is that the screenplay the original script called for they're using Dirty Harry to be carrying a 4-inch nickel-plated Model 29. That was the plan. Milius, wrote that. He had the main character carrying a 4-inch nickel. I had some of those, or had one or two of them back in the 70s myself. And they got to messing with it, and in the actual production and the lighting, it messed with the lighting. And then they got one, I guess. Then they had trouble getting more of them. They want to have 3 firearms exactly like, filming a movie, exactly, so that, one breaks or whatever, and you can't stop production because the gun's not working or whatever happened, gets lost, whatever, broken. And they just couldn't get them. The demand was not there again, and these guns were not everywhere like they were kind of later in the 70s. You could get the 4-inchers, the nickel, that kind of thing. The 8.38s were more common. This one was really hard to find. Really, I couldn't find one at that time. But so it's interesting. And I read that actually Clint Eastwood, a friend of his, knew somebody, the rep, Smith & Wesson rep in California or something. They got their hands on one of these, 6.5. They weren't even, planning to use this gun, this length, this configuration. And they saw it work better in different lighting. And I think Clint Eastwood liked it. He thought it just, being a little bit longer and, a big old gun. I think they just came to the conclusion, hey, this is what we want. This movie really is about the firearm. It's like Winchester 73. There aren't that many movies that are really about the firearm, where the firearm is almost the main character. And this probably was a good choice. Big old long barrel 44 Magnum. It just showed off well, in all the scenes. So that's just a little history there you might not have known. Let's shoot some specials, because if you have watched this series, you know that which movie does Dirty Harry, admit to carrying 44 specials, because he gets better control out of it. Right, Magnum Force. They're down on the range with those 4 bad cops, motorcycle cops. And he talks about the load he carries of 44 special, gets better control. And he is correct. If there's one thing I have fired a lot of, it's 44 Magnum, 44 special. And it is hard to beat the control, the feel. And you still got a great round, nothing better than a 44 special. It's ballistically very similar to a 45 ACP. And out of a longer barrel, probably better. But it's just very comfortable to shoot and plenty of power. It will take out a 2-liter without any trouble. It might even spin that tree around. Yep, see, hits pretty hard. Sends them on around there. Do I have one left? Did he fire 6 or did he fire only 5? That was double action. Double actions, and you pull the trigger and cock it like I just did there. Okay? So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it was an expensive trip to Columbus, because I ended not only traveling in motels, but and well worth it to help those folks out up there. I mean, if we're not working for the Second Amendment, what are we doing? And but had to pick up a firearm while I was there, and glad to have it. These, along with the Colt single action, probably my favorite old guns. We get right down to it, and a lot of it is because I grew up with them. These are the guns, the configurations that I shot and collected, traded for. I had 5 or 6 different ones back in the 70s when I first got into firearms in a big way. So when I went to the gun shop to trade or whatever to another Smith & Wesson, this is what it looked like. I wasn't thinking at that time, whoa, there's an old classic Smith & Wesson pinned and recessed. No, they didn't know anything different, And speaking of pinned and recessed, that of course it is, because it's a Model 29-2. And they quit pinning the barrel, that little pin there for you new folks. You don't know, that little pin that holds the barrel tight, supposedly. And then the recessed cylinders I'll show you. But you got the little pin there. They quit doing that around 79 and recessing the cylinders, counter boring them. See, when you put the round in there, the case is flushed. That's what that means. When you hear pinned and recessed, that's what they mean. So you'll hear the word recessed cylinder or chamber, or counterboard, which I think is actually a more accurate term. So they quit doing that. It wasn't essential, of course, but it's still either of those things. If you get one of these that's made in like 83 or something, or 84, it's not going to have either one. I think they quit doing that, well, like I said, in 79. No, I got that wrong. I made a mistake. I apologize. I promise I'm sorry. Actually, it was in 79 when they went to the 6-inch barrel. This one was 6.5. Okay, then it was like 80 or 81 when they quit pinning and recessing them, because I have a 4-inch stainless 629 that was made in 80 or 81, and it's still pinned and recessed. Okay, so I got that backwards. I know it's amazing. It's hard to believe I would make a mistake, but I just did. So yeah, it was around 81 when they quit pinning and recessing them. Okay, the cylinders and chambers. But in 79, they quit making them in 6.5-inch length on the barrel. They wanted to standardize with the other lineup, okay? That's one reason, or one way you know. If you see one that's 6.5 inches, it's a 70s gun or 60s, whatever, okay? And I can spot them a mile away. When I walked into the little gun shop, it's what's it called, Gun Envy. I saw it lying there, and I thought, you know what, that is a 6.5-inch Model 29, you know, without even picking it up or handling it. Because that 1/2 inch it just jumps out at me because I'm so familiar with these things, and I just had to think about it. So anyway, let me shoot some more. I like these hollow point, lead hollow point 44 specials. Those are kind of cool. It's hard to beat lead, although there's a lot of high tech. That's I think a Spear gold dot. That would be a great round to carry for defense too. Well, let's see. I've got these speed loaders. Let's just use one. How about that? They say Clint in the movies carried 3 of these, right? So I don't have a lot of pockets to put them in. But there you go. Let's go over there and see if it'll hit something across the hill. Oh, well, you know what we've got to do first, of course, is pop the gong. All right, nice. The sweet sound. Let me try a pig on the left up there. All right. I know what you're thinking, pig. Did he fire 6 or only 5? Oh, a little high. A little low. Now we might be empty. There we go. Got him on the last round. Yep. On the last round. Speaking of movies, I don't know, that classic scene that we were playing with there at the beginning, if you'll notice in that, and I noticed this without looking it up. After I noticed it, I looked it up, and of course everybody's, you know, it's all over the, you know, hey, yeah, one of the common mistakes in Dirty Harry is that early scene where the guys are robbing the bank and all that, and we're unloaded. And of course, Clint comes up to him, finally, the bad guy, and gives him the famous line, I know what you're thinking, you know, did you fire 6 or only 5? You know, when he finally does, he walks away, then he comes back, and then he clicks the gun. Well, if you notice, he comes back, and he cocks it, and then the angle changes from like down there looking up at him, and when he fires it, the cylinder turns. He fires a double action. So I caught that just recently. I don't know, I never had noticed it before. So then I started looking it up, and of course everybody had already caught that. But those are the kinds of mistakes, of course, you more likely to catch if you're familiar with firearms. So what else about this thing can I lie about? Again, the Model 29 it's not as sturdy as a Ruger. There are other 44 Magnums out there that will digest hot loads, you know, better for a longer period of time without shooting loose and all that sort of thing. There's no doubt about it. And they've always been kind of expensive, but they just have a feel. They're just a sexy gun. They're what a Smith & Wesson ought to be, of course. They're kind of, if you kind of grew up with Smith & Wessons, they're kind of what a revolver ought to look like and feel like. That's why I have a harder time being an old guy and having grown up with these and shot them so much. You know, the Chiappa, Rhino, or the Rugers I like fine, but they're just different, you know. But these are special. Price-wise, they've always been expensive. These have. My entire firearms career in terms of shooting and trading into these things, because of good old Clint Eastwood. They were, I think, supposed to cost in '74 when I bought that one. I think the retail, they were supposed to sell for like $249, something like that. Okay, maybe $239, you know. But you couldn't find, they were always $400. If you found one at $400, you know, that's just about what you had to pay. I still have the price tag, I think, for mine somewhere. It was $385 I paid for it, $385. And it was kind of funny because all through the 70s, they maintained that price inflation, because that movie, there'd always be another movie, you know, and they're always kind of hard to find. So they never did get back down to the MSRP. You know, nowadays, if something's MSRP $600, that means you can probably buy it for $500, right? Well, with these, all through the 70s and maybe into the 80s, whatever the MSRP was, figure to pay another 50% or 100%. There were waiting lists in every gun shop for them. It was interesting times. And I was into shooting steel and that kind of thing. So it wasn't just the Dirty Harry craze. It was great to be able to shoot, you know, moderate loads at steel. I was doing that at IHMSA competition. And so I like the 44. I like this gun. I like that gun, you know, for those reasons. Of course, it's still interesting, you know, that was such a famous revolver. But so that's kind of funny. For about 20 or 30 years, the price was about the same. They were way overpriced in the early 70s, and they maintained that. The MSRP, I think, finally at some point there, you know, kind of caught up with what they were selling for, you know, what you'd have to pay for one, maybe in the 80s somewhere, you know, and then they continued to go up some, but they just always cost $400 or $500. It seems like my entire life. I don't know what. Well, of course, now a new one, the classics are considered, they're like, what, $800 or $900 or something, you know. And of course, to buy these, they're high. This was priced very reasonably, and that's the main reason I couldn't resist it. And again, I appreciate the fellow who had this on consignment, because they gave him a call to see if he'd take my offer. And I wasn't trying to, you know, weasel somebody down to get something for nothing. I don't do that. I try to make a fair offer on something if I think I might want it. Or what I would be willing to pay, and if they don't, you know, want to take that, that's fine. It's just what it would take for me to walk out with it, or try to walk out with it, and so it all worked out. So anyway, let me shoot it some more. Let's just shoot a couple more of these special. I love these things. They feel so good. Have I hit the red plate up there? I haven't, have I? I mean, I might not be able to do it, but I was doing it earlier. I think I got the sights right where I want them. The windage seemed fine. The elevation, I did move just a little bit the other day. There we go. What I tell you, it just feels really good. That turkey up there on the right needs to be knocked down. But it went off before I was ready. Going high. Well, keep shooting the same hole, looks like. There we go. Knocked him crooked. Yeah. Of course, I need to correct myself. I said the gun went off before I was ready. They don't go off. I pulled the trigger, right? I pulled the trigger before I meant to. I mean, it's a very light trigger, and I was on target, but I wasn't totally on exactly where I wanted it. That was what it came down to. So anyway, that's the way that goes. We got a FedEx delivery. Maybe he's bringing some ammo. I guess we don't want to break his ears. Why don't we cut for just a second or two? Can y'all hang around with us for a little bit? You sure? Just get you another sandwich. We'll be back with you in a second. Okay. You don't think we're gonna let you walk out of here, do you? Me and Smith & Wesson. Boom. Oh, are we back, John? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was practicing my acting. Not that I need it, right? Yeah, so we got our delivery, and we're still here with this beautiful firearm, and we might be here all night. I might shoot even through the darkness. I'll shoot a couple more times. There was one thing I meant to tell you. I remembered it while we were on break. And another thing I thought was interesting, I read about in the Dirty Harry movie, the original. If you remember, when Clint is delivering the bag of money to this lowlife sicko at Coit Tower there in San Francisco. And I think the guy that's a really sick guy. Yeah, I also read that guy was a real artist. He was a stage actor. I can't think of his name, that played the sicko in Dirty Harry, and he really had trouble with that part, like being mean to kids or pretending to be mean to kids and all that kind of thing, because he's a smart, sensitive person, unlike me, right? And he just wasn't comfortable with that. So that's hard to believe, because he's one of the sickest people, during that time period, I think, in a movie. But anyway, he came out of the dark, and he told Clint to, I think Clint was standing there with his back to the tower, and he said, "Get rid of the gun," or something. And Clint pulls his gun out. And I remember this on the first time I saw it in the theater in the 70s, early 70s. And he said, "Get rid of it," or something. And Clint just tosses the revolver, and it's the real thing. Of course, he tosses it, and you hear it bouncing on the concrete. Ouch! Anybody who really likes firearms, even if it were an ugly old Glock, bouncing on the concrete, it seemed like it really was. And I remember thinking, it's horrible to hear that, But even though it was just a movie and it wasn't real, well, I've read it was real. And there's a couple of different stories. It was supposed to be the rubber gun, and the other story is they had a blanket there, and he was supposed to toss it on the blanket, but it was the real gun either way, and you could tell by looking at it and then hearing it hit. But it actually did hit and bounce on the concrete sidewalk, and it was actually the one they sent back to Smith & Wesson, had it refinished, reblued. And that's the one, I think, that's in the museum, at the NRA museum, that they presented to John Milius after they got it restored. So it's kind of interesting to know, whenever you see that movie, that really was the Model 29, just like this, bouncing on the concrete. And, they won't take a lot of bouncing on concrete and still maintain a finish, right? Wouldn't be quite as collectible. Well, that one would be. Let's shoot 6 more. I mean, why not? Okay. Just can't resist, and I'll quit yakking about it. It's kind of bad. It's like when I get a Colt single action out, I can't shut up. Just can't shut up. And one thing we haven't hit, it probably won't knock it over, but I'm going to hit that buffalo over there on the left. Well, I'm going to shoot at it. Let me rephrase that. I spoke too soon, didn't I? It knocked it over. Let's hit the gong. That's a sweet sound. It doesn't get any better. And I'm going to pop this cowboy here, because he looks like a bad guy. He has not been shot, and he looks kind of like a punk. Take this, punk. Click. All right, that's our little mini tribute to Dirty Harry, I guess. You can tell I enjoy this firearm, and I will enjoy it. I will shoot it. It probably will not be as worn as that one. I don't know if I'll put that many rounds through it, because when I was shooting that one so many times, the 8 3/8 through the decades, that was my main firearm for shooting. I wasn't going out and throwing thousands of rounds through 9mm and quite a few through 45 ACP, but mostly that firearm in the 70s and in the 80s. For almost 20 years, if I was going shooting, that was my primary firearm to shoot and enjoy. It really was. That's how I got 70,000+ rounds through it, hand loading and just counting the primers, keeping track of primers, and so that's how I know how many times I have fired. Not down to the, that's within 1,000 or 2. Okay, it was over 70 is all I know. And that's been a long time, but I haven't shot it as many rounds in the last 10 years or 20. So I won't shoot this one that much, but I will shoot it quite a bit. Good old double action. If you're new to shooting, double action. You can cock the hammer and fire it, or you can cock the hammer with the trigger. And on one that's this powerful, if you've got magnums in it, hot magnums, you generally don't want to do a lot of double action work. It hurts. And I told you I was going to go, but I'm going to finish up with some Magnum rounds. Let's do that, okay? I don't want y'all to think I'm a wimp. I don't want to lose my man card. But they really do. They do kick. And that's the thing. A firearm like this is not nearly as heavy as a big old X-frame Smith, like a 500 or 460. Those fire really powerful rounds, but they're also really heavy and have the big rubber grip. And this is not that heavy, so you definitely feel it when you fire one of these things. I can't decide which is worse, one hand or two hands. And you can tell by how it hits. I'll shoot the Cowboy there. Yeah, I mean, it hits with authority. Wow, I'll shoot one of his plates there. Loud too. Oh man, it sets you back. Let's go over there and hit the gong with one. It probably will print a little bit lower, so I'll hold up on it a little more. Boom. Nice. I think I have one more. Yeah, unfortunately I do. You know what? That thug there on the ground, let's take care of him. All right, so enough play. 44 Magnum, model 29-2, Smith & Wesson. Thank you, Columbus, and good luck to Ohio, and fighting for gun rights up there. I was glad to maybe help out in my small way. I just enjoyed that weekend, and wow, they even expand a lot, don't they? So this is my little memento from the trip to Columbus, Ohio. Make my day. Life is good.
Oh hi, didn't see you guys there. I was kind of trapped in my own little world there. So since you guys are here and my amp just fell down anyways and I can't play anymore, I wanted to let you guys know about our friends over at SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute. You can check them out at sdi.edu. They are a fully accredited online distance learning program where you can be certified in gunsmithing or get an associate's degree in firearms technology. So check them out, sdi.edu. Also, don't forget our friends over at vaultexsafes.com. You've seen their safes on the main shooting table in our main videos, so check them out if you need a pistol safe, lock up your pistols. So don't forget to check them out, vaultexsafe.com. And also you can find us on social media, Hickok 45 Facebook. We have a Patreon page now, so you can find us there. There's links to all this probably in the description. Hickok 45 on Twitter, the real Hickok 45 on Instagram. There's the Hickok 45 and Son YouTube channel. There's my Instagram, which is John_Hickok45, and John Hickok on Facebook, Hickok45 on Full 30, and also go to our website, hickok45.com. You can find all that kind of stuff on there too, as well as usually in the description of the video. So I appreciate you guys, and I don't know if I can make any more noise. Let's see.